Welcome to the future of South Africa's commuter rail future. My name is Bruce Whitfield. This is CNBC Africa, first in business worldwide. And I've got a fabulous panel for you today to introduce you to Gibela, which is a consortium which is going to be building South Africa's rail infrastructure of the future. Let me introduce you in order today to the Deputy Minister of Transport in South Africa, Sindisiwe Chikunga. Deputy Minister, good to see you. To Mark Granger, the Chief Executive Officer of Gibela, Lucky Montana, the Chief Executive of PRASA, the Passenger Rail Association of South Africa, to Dr. Martin Davies, the Chief Executive of Frontier Advisory, and somebody who's going to be giving us a perspective all about the rail networks around emerging markets, and then to the Executive Mayor of Ekurhuleni, Monty Gugubele. Mr. Mayor, nice to see you here as well. It is in the Mayor's area that a huge factory will be built to drive the future of rail transport in South Africa. Deputy Minister, let's get started with you. Clearly, government has got a vision for commuter transport for the future. In 90 seconds, and I will be timing you, what is that vision?
I think first, as the Department of Transport, we pride ourselves as the heartbeat of social and economic development in South Africa. And from that, we see ourselves as having public transport, and commuter rail is part of that, as having transport that is efficient, that is affordable, that is effective, that is secure, and that is safe. And that is what we're looking forward to as the Department of Transport, and of course as Government of South Africa.
Deputy Minister, within 90 seconds, well done, setting an example to the rest of our panel as well. Mark, this is going to fall largely on your shoulders as Chief Executive of Gibela. In 90 seconds or less, educate us about Gibela.
Our main mission is to provide the train and the associated services in order to achieve the great challenge the Deputy Minister has just mentioned. So this is our vision, to be a catalyst player allowing PRASA to make that great change. We know that nevertheless our challenge is not only to deliver train and maintenance activity, it's much more. Our mandate is also to revitalize the railway industry in the country, and given the magnitude of this contract, we will have also to provide a lot of initiatives in economic development for the country, jobs-related, skills development, and a lot of other focused on blackboard-based enterprise.
Mark Granger, of course, refers to the size of this contract. This is a $5 billion contract. In today's money, that's anywhere between 50 and 51 billion rand. In global terms, these contracts come along to railway players once in 20 years. This is huge. Most European railway contracts, for example, run to the tune of about $1 billion. This is 5 times bigger. This is a huge contract, which falls upon the shoulders of Lucky Montana, the Chief Executive of PRASA. You've got a lot to deliver on, Lucky. The Deputy Minister's watching every move you make. In 90 seconds, what's your vision for this?
Well, I think the first thing for us, let me, of course, on behalf of PRASA, congratulate Gibela. This is a major milestone in our ambitious program. We are trying to buy, firstly, reliability. And I think that when we look at the modern trains, that's what we are finding. Secondly, we wanted a partner who will bring into South Africa proven technology. And I think that in Gibela, we find that kind of a partner. But most importantly, we wanted a beautiful train, that train that will restore public confidence in public transport in the country. And I think that this 51 billion rand program is a major start in transforming public transport in the country.
51 billion is a major start. Hopefully that isn't on the expenditure line, but we'll talk about budgets later on. Martin Davies, you travel the world. You are a frontier market specialist as Chief Executive of Frontier Advisory. Who in the world offers the best public transport in a frontier market?
Thanks, Bruce. You know, it's planes, trains, and automobiles. We spend our lives traveling, and perhaps the most impressive example for me, I spent a great deal of time in China. By this time next year, China would have rolled out 18,000 kilometers of high-speed rail. I was in Shanghai recently, traveling to Nanjing. This is 300 kilometers. Takes 1 hour, exactly. It's a commute to work. Imagine commuting halfway to Durban on a train in 1 hour. it's truly revolutionary. I think bringing it closer to home, there's three imperatives here. I think firstly, for a relatively slow growth economy as we are, there's an imperative for the state to enable by driving growth through fixed asset investment spend, and this is a prime example of it. I think the second imperative is that of urbanization. I think very few cities, again, maybe even the Chinese to an extent, are being challenged by this despite the forward planning, are being able to plan and build for the unexpected rapid rates of urbanization we're seeing in this part of the world, particularly here in South Africa. And the third imperative what Mark was speaking to, the imperative of industrialization. I don't know one successful country, one wealthy, developed country that has succeeded without industrializing. The challenges for South Africa, and last point, is that we're unique globally because we're the only economy that has, in the last 2-3 decades, has hemorrhaged our industrialization sector, 10-15% of GDP perhaps, contribution. The challenge now for us is unprecedented. How does an economy reindustrialize? And that's, Mark, no pressure, but that's your job.
That's the pressure that you're going to face, Mark. You're at the center of this, but the epicenter of this particular phase of industrialization is going to be in Ekurhuleni. Mr. Mayor, Denota is an old Air Force base. They used to train Harvard pilots to fly aeroplanes there 20, 30 years ago. Today it is rural farmland. Ground is due to be broken there in the new year to build probably one of the biggest modern industrial estates of the 21st century in South Africa. What does this mean to Ekurhuleni?
Thanks, Bruce. I think naturally it will change and alter the landscape in Denota. But however, the key to us is that being the manufacturing capital of Africa and having the highest concentration of railway network, hosting the busiest airport in Africa, posing us as the first airport economic leader, there could not have been a better time to affirm that status than putting this project in Ekurhuleni. It no longer makes us the historic leader in manufacturing, it affirms us as the future. And it also puts us at the cutting edge of technology. What excites us is that key between customers and suppliers is connectivity. Physical connectivity is the most critical. That is between suppliers and customers. To actually have a functional railway network, a functional aviation system, being the manufacturing capital, indeed, our historic status is affirmed as a future status.
Those are the opening statements from our panelists this morning. We're also going to be asking our audience to ask questions here today as well. We'll have minutes of question time from the audience. Minister, how flexible is the budget? In South Africa, we tend to take a budget and we use it as a guideline and a suggestion rather than as a blueprint. If Mark goes 10 billion rand over budget, will that be okay?
Remember, this is a project that falls under the PICC, which is Presidential Infrastructure Coordination Commission.
Yeah.
And it is SIPS number 7, which is Strategic Infrastructure Project. And therefore, it will be monitored not only by the Department of Transport, but the PICC itself. We expect the contractor to work within the budget. But of course, will take care of whatever and probably will be flexible to listen if there are unintended or unexpected increases or whatever. We will look into that. But we expect, as the Department of Transport, that they will stick to what is available, which for now is 51 billion rand.
That 51 billion rand is your money. It's my money. It is our money as South African taxpayers. How is it going to be raised, Mark? Because, I mean, the budget is set. You've been told you've got 51, perhaps 51.5 billion rand if you're lucky. The money is going to be raised. Is it funded by the Department of Transport, or is the Department of Transport going to have to go to markets in order to raise the capital?
No, this budget is funded by the government itself, by the Treasury. And as far as we are concerned, Gibela, it is nearly as simple as we will be paid as soon as we deliver the train. We will have a bit of earlier expenses that are covered by the contract itself, but we will be paid as long as we deliver. It is as simple as that.
Who is Gibela? Because I look at the Gibela shareholding structure, I see it's 61% Alstom. Alstom, who, as many of us know, have been involved in the building of South Africa's power stations. Power stations are probably 3 to 4 years behind schedule, considerably over budget. We have a problem on that particular front. What sort of reassurance do we have that this time we get it right?
So, first of all, we have to say that the context of the different power plant contract you are referring to and our contract are totally different. On this one, we are the main contractor. We have everything in our hands to make it happen. Obviously, we will have to work together with a local supplier, but that is our responsibility. So I would say we will not face the same kind of risk. We will have to interact with our customer, Prasa, obviously, to agree on the train design, and this process is already ongoing. So I do not see a major risk leading us to fail or to be largely over budget. If our customer along this journey, which will last 20 years, so it will be a long journey. Maybe the customer needs, and as a consequence, Prasa needs, will be different in 5 years from now. Then we will adapt, and if we need to change something on the train, we will do it. But everything is already settled, very well described in our contract, and I can't see a lot of opportunities to come and see my customer Prasa and ask for more money without good reason.
But you are the 61% share, or Alstom is the 61% shareholder in Gibela. When we look at the other 39%, that's not even yet defined as to exactly who the empowerment partners are going to be in this one, Lucky. Mark doesn't know who he's going to be working with, so he's being very confident, but doesn't yet know who his partners are. That's up to you to choose who those partners will be. Where are we in that process?
That process has already been completed. I think that we've got representatives here of the 30%, which of course we selected through a very rigorous, transparent process. It was important for us to ensure that the goals of broad-based black economic empowerment are realized. You know, the old form of BEE, we had an international company to come into the country and just select their own people who don't take a meaningful role in the process. But I think that now with what we are trying to achieve, we want a BEE that takes part in this industrialization process. That is very important. We want a BEE partner who makes sure that they get involved and they are part of building the capacity of the country. I think you made the point earlier on how much deindustrialization has taken place. So it's very important that the BEE sector build part of that. So Ubumbano is here as the representative of the 30%. We've also broadened that to include our own employees at Prasa. As you know, that there will be, we want to ensure that employees who have worked for Prasa in railways for the past 30 years, we really recognize them, and I think we put in a structure that ensures that it empowers these employees. Finally, we've set up an education trust. That education trust will take some of the proceeds to build the next generation of railway skills in our country. So we are quite happy because that is the revolutionary nature of the procurement process that we followed. And I think that it has laid the basis for a much more, rail engineering in the industry of the future.
But the reality of South Africa is the last time we built trains was probably 40 years ago, and that's the rolling stock that we see on the Metro Rail network at the moment. And anybody in this room has been on a Metro Rail train in the last 5 years knows it can be something of a scary experience. I speak from first-hand knowledge. But none of the consortium members, other than Alstom, have got any rail experience. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No. There are quite a number of players within Ubumbano who have got direct experience in railways. Of course, what we structured our procurement process to recognize the fact that the technology, modern technology on railways, on building trains, on building railway lines, no longer reside in South Africa. That doesn't mean that that capacity is completely withered away. We still have some of the companies in the country who've got the know-how, but of course they cannot deliver the kind of train that a company like Alstom will be able to deliver. So we are using this as a partnership technology transfer to rebuild that capacity again. But we do have companies who have over the past 8 to 12 years been involved in this industry, and I think that they'll add into the knowledge and know-how that Alstom is bringing into the country.
Martin Davies, you want to add something?
Yeah, Bruce. I mean, look where we are now. We're sitting here, Mary Fitzgerald Square. The heart of the South African economy was based on, well, it was created literally around us on corporate entrepreneurship, going back a century or so of foundations. As you say, we have not built these trains, these rolling stock for perhaps 40, 50 years. It's half a century. What we want to see out of us ultimately is the creation, as you mentioned, Lucky, is black industrial corporates. Corporates, not small fragmented companies, but consolidated corporates. That's the strength of South Africa. That's what differentiates us from practically every other economy in the region. And the second thing to mention, and easier said than done, but Marks & Maelstrom, you have a consortium of foreign companies here, local players. Most importantly, we mustn't stress too much, although we must keep the budget, of course, but 51 odd billion rand. The capital's not terribly important. The capital actually doesn't matter. What does matter, the money is not important. What is important is the intellectual property that comes with it. And an open question for all of us here, are we creating the institutions within this consortium that's able to absorb and replicate and embed the intellectual property of industrialization that comes with this capital, with this project?
It is all about skills transfer. Mr. Mayor, I want to get a view from you about the capacity of Ekurhuleni to deliver in just a moment. But Mark, part of this deal is you've got a 9-year contract. Part of that 9-year contract is you need to upskill, train, educate, and get people to a point where in 9 years' time, when it comes to renewing or not the Gibela contract, you can tick the appropriate boxes to deliver exactly the challenges that Martin Davies talks about.
It's, as I mentioned, it's a very important part of our mission. The subject is to create a South African company. Let me re-emphasize that. Gibela is a South African company who will employ, when we will be fully operational, will employ more than 90% of South African people. We will have to source a lot of components, raw materials, small parts for building our trains. The focus on the black local economy will be huge. We are committed to source roughly 30 billion rounds towards black enterprise.
And it's something like 60% local components must be utilized in the manufacturing of these trains over the period of the contract.
Yeah, it's even, our target is even 70%.
Up to 70%. Mr. Mayor, I know that you need to get on a train, hopefully one of the better old Metro Rail trains, to get to another appointment. But the pressure will be on you at Ekurhuleni to get this project underway. The first ground is to be turned in January, February next year. There have been some logistical constraints. There have been some planning constraints. This is crucial to the future economy of Ekurhuleni. Can you speed up the process to ensure that we don't fall behind at the first hurdle?
I think we, so far, with the evidence at my disposal, we are moving in tandem with PRASA and Gibela. Various processes with regard to finalization of lease agreements, dealing with the development of the site where this is going to take place. Our various teams are interacting. There is a process plan to deal with that. The draft project plan that deals with the details of all actions that must be actually executed so that the 2015 March target date is met. All those teams are interacting. There are tasks that must be carried by PRASA. There are tasks that must be carried by the city. There are tasks that we must jointly carry. Where I'm sitting, we are on course with regard to those.
Now, infrastructure is one thing. Building the facility is one thing. Can people get to and from it? Where will people live? Will there be enough electricity? Can the infrastructure sustain an industrial boom, a mini industrial boom on the edge of Ekurhuleni?
Naturally, this calls for adjustment in terms of the bulk infrastructure. be it sanitation, water, energy, and so on. This also calls for adjustment in anticipation for social empowerment, issues of connectivity from internet, issues of social empowerment, your recreative centers and so on. Because those who will be working there have got a social life to live. So it means it's a combination of a lot of things. That's why a number of our teams, that is water, energy, environment, are part of this process.
Will it be jobs for local people, or will we see expertise parachuted into an exclusive enclave that becomes Donota's industrial estate?
The parachuting can't be fully avoided because there will be those skills which we don't have. But we want to take advantage of this opportunity to make sure that Ekurhuleni people are organized and prepared to participate. Just to give you one example, with our FET colleges, we have already put 6 million aside, 1,000 people on the recognized prior learning. We have agreed that they be trained in partnership with those FET colleges. We've got more than 1,000 young people who are actually doing learnership in various companies, preparing them, because it's agreed now by economists that Ekurhuleni economy is the economy of the future. The biggest job in the medium terms, the highest number will be created in the city. So we have all programs to prepare Ekurhuleni people to take advantage of those opportunities.
Minister, hold that thought. Mark, hold that thought. I want to come back to those thoughts in just a moment. But to our studio audience, I need questions from you. I've already primed one of my guests that I will pick on him, should the rest of you not have questions to ask. There is a question in the front. I need a microphone right to the very front row, please. The naughty kids always sit in the front of the row at school. I'd like you, please, to identify yourself, stand up, identify yourself, and a brief question, please, sir. The gentleman in the middle. If you can target your question at a particular individual, that'd be great.
Thank you. My name is Pet Sibande. I'm a member of the Portfolio Committee on Transport. My question, I think I wanted to make it short like this. In order to make that our dream of Gibela is taking place, I wanted to find out about the issue of foundation, because I believe that beside being aging of the rails and the lines, etc., I wanted to find out that by when are we going to see some fruits, in particular as a foundation, in terms of the railways, because in order to have the trains, there must be a railway.
There we go. Mr. Sibande, thank you very much for the Portfolio Committee in Parliament. Lucky Montana, that's your question.
I think that we are not just building trains. I think that we've got a massive modernization program. As you know, that for the next 3 years, we are spending almost 40 billion rands just to modernize the infrastructure, the depots and everything, just to make sure that these trains, when they arrive, they operate in an infrastructure that is ready to receive that kind of modern technology. And I think to say to Mr. Sibande, I know you come from your hometown of Mpumalanga. We have been given the mandate by the Minister of Transport to commence with the process to build the railway line between Tshwane as well as Moloto and later to the north. Now that is not a commuter train similar to what we are building. That will be a high-speed train, 300 kilometers per hour. So these are the kind of things that we're talking about. So we are seeing a revolution in railways. So 51 billion rands is a major start in your rail modernization program. In China, Spain, and many other countries have done exactly, we've studied those models. And we think that in 10 years' time, we should start to see the results of some of the work. But the first train, we're going to test next year. Not in 10 years' time.
Okay, so the first trains will be tested next year. When will the first Donota-built train roll on South Africa's rail network, on the commuter network? Give me a date, Lucky.
Well, we are talking about 2016. That is when the first train will come out of that. But we just sent a big team to Brazil. As you know, that out of the 600 trains, 20 of those trains are being built as we speak. We sent a couple of our people, both management and board. They went to visit the factory there. They saw our train, the underframe and all the work has commenced. And I think that in due time, we'll be able to present to South Africa a real train that they will be proud of.
Is that a January 2016 or is it a December 2016
No, we're talking
journey?
about late 2016, yes.
Okay, late. So
Yeah.
it's closer to December than it is to January
Indeed,
2016. Okay.
Well, let me emphasize that it depends whether we accept. When we get the first train to test, it may not even meet our standards, and we have to send it back.
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen. We got another question from the front here, please, sir.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Keta Mavalastole, a member of the Portfolio Committee from National Assembly. My first question is, do they have the structure that will deal with the skill transfer? And the other question is, the dissemination of information. Do they have any structure that will deal with the information that must inform the community of Ekurhuleni? Because I'm from Ekurhuleni, the mayor is from Ekurhuleni. We know our history, so now we want to find about the information that
Great.
is,
Thank you very much, sir. So two questions for you, Mark, in terms of the structures, in terms of reportability, absolutely important, and also the other issue raised by the portfolio member.
So I'm happy to take the floor there because I would like to emphasize on the magnitude of the skills transfer we are going to manage. We overall on the project duration, we are going to skills 19,000 people, and that is just not words. It's a contractual commitment I've signed on behalf of the company towards Prasa. That is not going to happen easily. We have a training organization within Gibela which will organize all that program. And Lockheed Montana has just mentioned the fact that we are going to manufacture the first 20 trains in one of Alstom facility in Brazil. What are the reasons for that? The first reason is to speed up the process and to have trains as quickly as possible. But the main reason is not that one. The main reason is to use this manufacturing activity in Brazil as a training center for the Gibela people, the Gibela artisans we will have to train in order for them later to manufacture the trains in our Junota facility. So I would like to convey the message that training, skills development is really key. We will have our own training center in our industrial park in Ekurhuleni, but we will work as well with national institution because we will have to train engineers, we will have to train with artisans, we will have to train technicians.
Mark,
so
I need you to wrap up. Communication with Ekurhuleni, absolutely crucial in 20 seconds.
So we will have a communication with Ekurhuleni, but also a communication with Prasa, because it's a contractual commitment. We need it, of course, but it's not only that. Prasa has organized itself to put us under pressure to deliver on our commitment. So we need it, and we have to do it. So we will do it.
That's the introduction then to Gibela. It's an introduction to the way in which the future of rail transport will work in South Africa. When we come back from the break, we will hear from a representative of rail commuters. We'll also be asking the minister whether or not we find South Africa's Ministry of Transport getting itself into trouble, as it has when it comes to toll roads, for example, which have still got to be paid for, and when it comes to issues like the Airports Company South Africa, which sits with a massive debt burden, which is being paid for by its customers, and also to Lucky Montana. What is one of these tickets going to cost to pay back the 51 billion rand that Treasury is supplying? The tough questions come in just a few moments. You're watching CNBC Africa. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Welcome to the launch of Gibela. This is the future of rail in South Africa. Lots of big promises, lots of big numbers, lots of big suggestions, and lots of big ideas being shared here, but ultimately somebody's got to pay for it. The mayor of Ekurhuleni has gone and prepare the groundwork for the future of the big industrial park that will be built at Junota. But we're also joined on the show by Stephen Sangweni, who represents rail commuters. We'll talk to him in just a couple of minutes' time. But before the break, I promised to get rough, tough, and a little bit mean with the Deputy Minister. Deputy Minister, we've seen massive expenditure, for example, on the e-toll roads, which are yet to be paid for. We've seen massive expenditure on South Africa's fantastic airport infrastructure, which still has to be paid for. Ultimately, it falls on the users to pay for this infrastructure. 51 billion rand of taxpayers' money, raised from taxpayers, probably borrowed on international markets, is going to be given to the Department of Transport for this project to upgrade South Africa's commuter rail network, it is going to have to be paid for. How do you see that happening?
This is not a user pay project. So the commuter will not be expected to pay, but the Treasury will pay. And it will do it through the Department of Transport to PRASA and of course to the contractor. And what we are actually doing as government, we think that we should invest in infrastructure. And in so doing, we hope that going forward, we're going to get some benefits and dividends as a country out of the developed infrastructure. We're looking at the rail services that are revitalized, that are refurbished, that are effective, that are a choice to every South African to use. And we also are looking at this giving us some skills transfer, as we have said, but also employment, which we always say it's a problem, which probably will address the issue of inequality that we have in the country.
Deputy
And
Minister,
therefore, this
isn't
is
there
what we're
something of a
looking at.
double standard here, however? You're asking drivers to pay for the e-tolls, you're asking air passengers to pay for the airports, but you're telling rail passengers they can pay for cheap transport.
I think if you're talking about the drivers, for instance, Sanral, for instance, because you're bringing this one issue, owns 19,700 kilometer road network. Of that, only 3,200 is tolled. The rest of our national roads are not tolled. They are funded through the Treasury, but of course, transfers from the toll roads to those that are not tolled. And this is exactly what we are doing here. And therefore, this is a Treasury-funded project, and it falls under the PICC projects, and it is monitored by government closely. As the Department of Transport, we are the shareholder. When it comes to PRASA, we'll have a responsibility to monitor that they stick to contractual obligations, but also the PICC Council will also monitor this. And therefore, they are actually accounting to both the Department of Transport, but to the Presidential Infrastructure Coordinating Commission as well.
Lucky Montana, what's a train ticket going to cost me from Soweto to Park Station 5 years from now?
On average, people still pay in the order per trip about 8 rands. Yes, we've just increased the fares, but they're still not even cost reflective. As we move forward, we will of course change the fare structure, but I want to reinforce what the Deputy Minister has said. We can't place the burden of repaying the 51 billion rands on the small number of rail commuters as things stand right now. We have to ensure that with the new trains and with the improved system, we increase our patronage. I think currently it accounts for about 18% of the public transport market. We want it at between 35 and 40% over the next 10 years. So increased numbers will play quite a major role. But remember, we've had a policy choice in South Africa. And this is a stance taken by growing cities around the world. Promote public transport over private car use, which means public transport must be a mode of choice for many people. It must be efficient, it must be accessible, and therefore that is why people will pay on the road. But I think that we need, because you are trying to say we want to attract them to use public transport, because the economic and the social benefit of using public transport is much bigger than what you use with the car. So it is a policy choice. It's not a matter of accident that they will pay on the road, but they'll pay less on public transport.
Stephen Sangweni is the president of the South African Commuters Organization. What do you make of this 51 billion rand expenditure plan on South Africa's commuter rail network?
Well, I'd say on behalf of the commuters which are using the trains, you'll understand that it is a burden to the commuters when they are traveling by public transport. All modes of public transport is so expensive. And we will not be happy if we see that this 51 billion becomes a knob carry on commuters, because that will cause some problems. But we believe and trust that our government is a government that will listen to the user of the rail system. As you know that our residential areas were demarcated far away from the workplace, where they're supposed to be next to the workplace, and that makes commuters to have a longer journey others traveling before they have access to the trains, they travel more than 3 kilometers within the township to the rail station. As you know that our demarcation of the rail line system was not made for the public transport users. It was made, demarcated for the goods to bring products to the industrial cities. So that's why you find that we don't have access to the public transport.
Access is so absolutely important, and it's part of an integrated transport plan, Deputy Minister. We've got to get taxis working together on this, and we've seen the huge tension between the rapid bus systems that have been brought into Cape Town and into Gauteng, for example, and the taxi industry. How much buy-in do you have broadly where taxi owners will say, sure, we'll deliver passengers to the railway stations and take our taxis off the road? That sounds like a fight for the future.
I think the taxis are agreeing with the department on the issues related to integrated transport, because this is what we're working towards, to have transport that is integrated, taxis that are feeding rail services, buses, rail services, and therefore maybe rail services forming the backbone of our public transport. We're looking towards that as the Department of Transport. But also I think I must indicate the fact that soon we'll be having a taxi summit that will discuss these issues further and actually concretize them so that it's not just department leading and the people that are in the industry left behind. And that is why we're going to have that taxi industry.
So it's still a negotiating process that has to be had.
I think on the principle we agree, but I think we need to discuss the logistics about the whole issue.
Martin Davies, I mean, you told us earlier about how the Chinese rail system works so effectively, the high-speed train that you were on recently, going at 300 and something kilometers an hour, covering the 300 kilometers in 1 hour. Is South Africa, if we look at comparable economies, because although we are a BRICS member, our economy is considerably smaller than our BRICS partners, are we really an economy that can take this comparable rail system? Do we have the density of population, the number of commuters, and the capacity ultimately to pay for what is being proposed?
Which comes first? Is it the infrastructure or the market? And this is a challenge which we're talking about now in South Africa. Imagine a similar challenge, even far more exacerbated, in countries to the north of us. You ultimately want infrastructure to be economically enabling. Yes, the state is investing heavily, very heavily, taxpayers' money into this project. The intention is it will be economically enabling, reduce commuter times, but at a fair price, I must say. There should nothing for free. That should be the point. But ultimately, it must be financially sustainable, yes. Productivity gains, yes. I come back and talk about the intellectual property issue Mark we spoke about earlier as well. But one other thing, just to harp on a point of this, I think so comparable models, perhaps not beyond, in a low growth economy where we are now, below 2%, it's particularly challenging. If our economy is growing at 5-6%, which it should be, albeit at difficult times globally as we face now, I think it'll be much more easier to justify that financial capex outlay to such an extent on a project like this.
But we're not going to get to 5 or 6% growth rates unless we get the infrastructure sorted. So we've got to start somewhere. Are we starting in the right place, in your view, Martin?
I think, you know, in this context, undoubtedly we are. Johannesburg is the engine room of not just the country, the region, but the continent. And we need to recognize that and support and invest in it. But at the same time, I think there needs to be financially sustainable models. Put in, not punitive, but some sort of balance. We talk about the developmental state. The developmental state does not mean infrastructure for free. The developmental state means we can break even at least, but we should always seek profit and not at taxpayers' expense. In the context of China, you've seen the uptake on these high-speed rail networks are unbelievable in terms of the volume of people. In South Africa's context, you mentioned high-speed rail earlier to Mpumalanga, perhaps, and other places. Imagine a train going to Cape Town, which is, you know, Beijing, Shanghai is Johannesburg, Cape Town. 2 hours flying time, almost exactly the same distance. And you're there in 4.5 hours. But for the state to make very assertive investment decisions like that, you need to break vested interests. What about SAA? If you're traveling to Durban on a train in 2 hours, we would love that. But what about the airlines? What about the airports we've already invested into? So the state needs to be very assertive as to how we make these decisions rationally, what is best interests of A, the economy, and B, commuters.
Do we have that balance right, Deputy Minister?
I think we do.
We hope we do. And that's the big issue. We've already invested substantially in, call it the sort of the LSM 9 and 10 infrastructure. We need to be growing the economy from the roots up. But how do we, with confidence, invest this amount of money in an environment where, as the former Treasury Director General, the Chief Executive of Barclays Africa, Maria Ramos, is telling participants in her results presentation just today that they're anticipating at Barclays Africa 1.5% growth, even more pessimistic than what Jill Marcus was saying from the Reserve Bank just a week or two ago at 1.7%. When you look at comparable places where Alstom has been involved and where you've got your prototypes from, Marcus Gibela, what is the future for South Africa as a low-growth country with such big infrastructure demands?
Before answering directly to your question, I would like to come back on the point which have been addressed while trying to compare South Africa with other countries, including high-speed links, which is one part of the railway story. Here, at least as far as we are concerned, we are speaking about commuters. And this country is a large country. It was in the past a very well railway commuters operation developed country. And it is still. The only problem is that no investment took place over a long period of time. And it's time now to renew the aging fleet, which unfortunately does not allow Prasa to deliver good service. And as a consequence, the growth is not there. But thanks to the new train we are going to provide to Prasa, first of all, the attractiveness will be much higher, that's for sure. It will be much more reliable, safer. It will attract people because it will be the most efficient transport mode to be used compared to the other one you've used. And one point I may add on the global economy environment, our trains are going to use something like 30% less energy to be operated, which will generate some significant savings on Prasa operation. In order to face this investment as well.
Lucky Montana's big concern is how commuters will treat these trains into the future, Stephen. We have seen incidents where rail commuters, through frustration, through delays, through whatever reason, have set trains on fire in the past. What sort of buy-in do we have from the commuting public that this rail infrastructure will be treated with the respect that Lucky hopes it will?
Well, what I can say is that yes, commuters in the country are frustrated due to unreliable and affordable public transport. But I believe that because we do communicate with the commuters, I believe that they are waiting. They wish this thing can happen yesterday. So, but I wanted also to touch on the issue that of infrastructure of rail system. I think South Africa needs to grow, as we have said it in 2006, but the rail system must go where people stay, unlike the conditions now. And we believe that, SACO, that we need to integrate our public transport. We need to introduce, government should introduce feeder systems in order that it will be easier for people and it will be less costly when we have that type of system. So we believe that when you speak about integration of public transport, we believe that the taxis, because they are the ones that are taking majority in the far townships to the rail stations and to the cities. We believe that taxis should become a feeder system to the rail stations.
Okay. I want to ask you, Lucky, in terms of the investment. This 51 billion is about rolling stock. It's about investing in signaling equipment. It's about upgrading what is there already. However, to Stephen's point, are we going to see an expansion of the Prasa rail network as well? Because that's a whole nother entire budget when it comes to expenditure. Building railway lines isn't cheap.
No, we've got to do that, but we're not going to build railways everywhere. You remember, if you look at our current projects, we spend over 50 million on average. That is per kilometer. We spend about 50 million rand, which means, therefore, we have to focus investment in railways in high volume corridors, where we should be able to move per hour in the order of 60 to 80,000 people in a peak. Because you can't put the railway system where you are moving 5,000, 10,000 people. It's not efficient. Railways are not built for that purpose. So our modal deployment, taxis, buses, rail, and even pedestrians needs to be combined into an integrated network. Now, one of the major things about how we're going to fund this system, I think that we need to be very clear. In the short term, you remember South Africa and Europe, for example, are different, the densities.
Yep.
So in the short term, it means, of course, that the increased patronage, we have to use the enormous real estate that you find in railways to support and fund the operations in a very big way. And of course, in the long run, you need a special transformation so that the current rail system, trains move one direction, and even buses in the morning, we park that capacity for 8 hours of the day.
Yep.
And then in the evening, we move it into that way, into the opposite direction. Now, that's what you have in Moloto. That's how you have with the commuter rail system. You need to transform that and make sure that you have a system that throughout, it operates 18 hours a day, and then for 6 hours you do your maintenance. So this is a major change, but we can't sustain this 51 billion rand modern trains if the special forms in the country do not actually change and we don't densify as quickly as possible. So that's very important.
Historically, Martin Davies, how does this, does sort of spatial transformation follow infrastructure transformation? We've seen, for example, what's happened in areas like Sandton with the creation of Gautrain, with huge densification of office space in Sandton along the Rosebank node as well. And we're seeing lots of development in Braamfontein, very close to Park Station, where people and offices are moving closer to where the stations are for that efficiency purpose. Will we see a spatial transformation of South Africa follow this investment?
Well, we've made a lot of mistakes, in my
Yeah,
view.
absolutely.
A lot of mistakes, but now we need to ensure that there's a balance between our land use planning as well as transport provision.
I just want to get some other examples from other countries from Martin Davies, and then take questions from the floor once again. Martin?
Yeah, I think ideally, again, coupled with effective urban planning, this is let's not forget, a very rapidly urbanizing city. How do we start to link the urban planning sort of future scenarios with the rail network? This is imperative, but above all, it's about, development is a bit like Scrabble, where the more letters you have of higher value, the more value you create. So around these new nodes, these emerging nodes that we're planning for, how do we get more letters there? Letters can be institutions, schools, R&D institutes, companies, individuals, organizations, whatever it may be. So at a high level, the satellite view of these new nodes beyond the infrastructure, the hard infrastructure, the obvious infrastructure, how do we start to populate them with softer infrastructure, services particularly? And services ultimately, but beyond manufacturing, we talk about 1,500 jobs directly created. But the knock-on effect, the scalability of 1,500 permanent, very visible jobs is extremely scalable from a services perspective. How do we factor in these services around these emerging nodes? I think that is a crucial point.
Okay, to the floor, please. We've got the portfolio committee in the front row. They're wonderful questions, thank you. But from further back, from the naughty row at the back, there are guys giggling at the back, which always makes me want to pick on you. So be very careful as I do that. But we have a question from you, ma'am.
This is middle of the way. We'll still get to the back. Thank you, Bruce. My comment is actually more related to a point raised in the first segment regarding the black South African co-investors to Alstom and Gibela to support the CEO of Process comment. We were independently selected, and our skills and track record actually are rail related. So in our company Identity Partners, we've been in the rail segment for 5 years. We have partners here, Kipinyawa, they've been in the rail sector for almost 10 years. Over and above that, I think, though, about new generation BEE companies, we want to be active, not passive. And you can ask Alstom. We knock on their door all the time for opportunities. Lastly, which is quite important, is about the future. Almost 800 million is set aside for new enterprises, new entrepreneurs. And in our existing business, in Identity Partners, we finance about 57 businesses. We hope all of us collectively to bring to bear new emerging black players who are going to be industrialists of the future. So it's a much bigger story, but those are the three takeaways I thought were important.
Thank you very much for that contribution. Minister, I mean, it's at times like this where politicians go, and we're going to create X 10,000 numbers of jobs as a result of this. I'm starting to count from today, and we'll look at it in 5 years' time. How many real jobs that we will be able to calculate and count are going to come about directly as a result of this 51 billion rand investment?
They've promised that we're going to create 8,088 direct jobs and 33,000 indirect and direct jobs, and we're monitoring them.
They have promised. Now, who are they? Because I want to find out who they are.
The contractor, in fact.
Okay, so
yes.
Gibela, you have promised.
Yes.
This is your promise. What is it, 40 or 50,000 jobs? Where are we sitting?
So, to answer quite clearly to the question, we as Gibela, with our own factories, we will employ 1,500 people. And that will not be in 20 years from now. It will be within the 5 years range you have quoted, even earlier.
And these are highly specialized, skilled jobs.
Yes, that is important. And I relate with my point on the skills development program we do have, which is key. But we are not going to work alone. We are going to engage with a lot of partners, of suppliers to whom we will buy some components of some parts. They will have themselves to create jobs.
Just give me a number, Mark. Give me a number.
It's difficult to quantify, but the order of magnitude that we may consider is altogether direct job is 8,000.
Okay, 8,000 direct jobs, and the 33,000 will be in support industries, like in the BE companies, for example, as has been explained to us now. Right, quick, one last question. Richard Mkonda actually does want to ask a question. A microphone to Richard Mkonda, please. Let's get him. Here he is. It's coming on your left-hand side, Rich. It's incoming on your left-hand side. Richard Mkonda with a microphone. Quick question.
Okay, Bruce, since you picked on me, I wanted to ask. During the past 20 years, there has been a lot of promises on building infrastructure as far as transport is concerned. I remember many speeches.
Quick question, Rich. Quick question.
Now, what is the difference with this one?
Okay, who is that question aimed at? The Minister.
Both the Minister and Prasa. The second one is...
Deputy Minister, the promises of the past, one question only, Rich, we have to wrap up. The promises of the last 20 years have been made. Why is it different this time?
We have developed infrastructure in the past 20 years. We have our national roads that compete very well with the international roads in the world. We also have the Ria Vaya. We're doing it. We are seeing it happening in South Africa. We are in this one now on passenger rail services, and we have money or budget that is committed to doing it, and we're going to do it. And as the government and the department, we're excited about it. And therefore, with what we've done in the past, we've learned and will continue to learn.
Last question to Lucky Montana before we have to wrap. In 5 years' time, Lucky, when I look back and I judge you as the Chief Executive of PRASA on delivery, give me 3 guarantees in 30 seconds that I can judge you on 5 years from now.
Well, the first one is that in 5 years' time, we would have introduced on high-volume corridors these modern trains, which will be supported by a signaling system, modern trains. So that is the first issue that we can say. Secondly, I know that with the factory that is being built, South Africa will have a capacity to support not only its own economy here, but also to support the transport system in the rest of the continent. So I think that is very important. Thirdly, I think that a new generation of railway skills would have been built. So I think that if you look at where we are coming from, and that's a parting shot for Brarich, we spent over 100 billion rands in transport over the last 5 years. What you are seeing new systems, BRTs, commuter trains, new stations that have been built. Now, what we're saying is that this particular project is now the catalyst to transform the whole system.
And at that point, we will leave it. I thank you very much. The conversation will happen here in Miriam Fitzgerald Square as members of the Portfolio Committee are here, members of the public, interested members of the public as well. I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'd like to thank our studio audience for participating, and also to our panel today of Stephen Sangweni, who's representing commuters, of also the Chief Executive of Gibela, Mark Granger, the Deputy Minister of Transport, Cindy Siwe Chikunga, and also, of course, course, Lucky Montana from PRASA, and Dr. Martin Davies from Frontier Advisory. Thank you for your contributions today. Thank you for watching, and watch the next 5 years. Let's PVR Lucky Montana's promises, store them on your hard drive, and let's judge the outcomes of this 51 billion rand investment in the future of South Africa's rail commuter network. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.